So I worked at Bolton from about 2013 to 2025. And because of a restructure, myself and a member of the team had to leave the college. And we were so passionate about our work in AI that we thought we'll pursue that and carry on with it at Second Mesh. So in July, we set up Second Mesh with another colleague in Bristol, and we're pursuing the development and deployment of AI services within the education sector through that company. And one of the things that we're doing is making sure that the ethos that we developed at Bolton carries on at Second Mesh. So that's the whole idea of our particular philosophy. So we started back at Bolton. We first started to deploy chatbots, our Ada chatbot, into Moodle in September 2017. So it seems like about 8 or 9 years ago that we started that particular venture. And in those days, teachers were able to create and share the creation of chatbots. And the training of chatbots was done through a very deterministic model where the teachers and the instructor designers and even students as well set up question and answer pairs for each of the questions that were posed by the students in their courses. And what we did was we had an external platform called Ada Goes to School where we created these chatbots. We were able to grab the embed code and then deploy them to our Moodle courses around the college. And but one of the most interesting things that we did was deploying a chatbot to Moodle wasn't enough. We were saying how far could we go with the embed. So we said if you're in a SCORM package and you launched an online learning object on the screen, could you actually integrate a chatbot like Ada into the actual SCORM package while students were navigating and going through it? So we set up an Ask Ada button on the bottom left-hand corner of our SCORM packages, and students, if they got stuck or they wanted more information, they could click on it and then interact with the chatbot in real time within that SCORM package to elicit information to support their tutorial or that learning object. And one of the nice things that we did was that particular content was rich in text, hyperlinks, and video and images. So because it was deterministic, the teachers and the instructional designers could add a rich multimedia content within the replies that the chatbot gave to the students on the screen while they were engaging with the online learning materials. So it's one of the few things that's still lacking in the chatbot interfaces and chatbot responses on learn management systems like Moodle to this day, because they're very much text-based, and at the present moment in time, they're not really rich, and the probabilistic nature of chatbots means that the content that we used to curate about 9 or 10 years ago on Moodle and Ada is still richer than it is right now on a probabilistic large language enabled chatbot like ChatGPT or Gemini. We haven't got to that point yet where the responses are rich in text, links, images, and multimedia, so that the replies are like little learning objects in themselves. So that still is missing from the equation today. The lesson that we learned from all of that was it was very playful, and there was a lot of scope to experiment, and we created our own tool sets and platforms to enable all this to happen. Students welcomed the immediacy of the responses for the on-demand questions. And instructional designers, one of the most telling bit for instructional designers was that the learning objects that they created and deployed through these SCORM packages, they were less cluttered than they used to be, because normally on an online learning object, you would have links, pop-up boxes, and other interactive elements. But really, all that was about eliciting information from the screen to help the student or the instructor. But if you've got a chatbot on the inside the actual SCORM package or the learning object, then all of that noise disappears from the learning object, and you end up with quite a nice clean interface, because all of the pop-ups that you used to have, all the additional information blocks that you used to have, are now contained within the chatbot window on the actual package itself. So if you've got a question or you want to find out a little bit more, you simply pose a question to your chatbot within that learning object, and garner all the information that you need before you move on to the next element of the tutorial. So at the present moment in time, that's still missing. So when you go to a Articulate, or you go to Rise, you go to Captivate, you go to Adobe to create learning materials, and you deploy them to a Moodle, those are still missing a chatbot on the screen. I think time will come when chatbots will be deployed to learning objects that are created across all those platforms. But the developers haven't quite cracked that yet, because these platform providers want to be able to suck up the income that's generated through the API calls for your chatbot. So at the moment, all of the revenue goes to the provider for the large language model and the chatbot interface. So Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI and the others, they get the revenue. So the learning object providers like Adobe, Captivate, and the others, they haven't quite figured that one out yet, and we haven't seen chatbots being deployed to, say, Articulate Rise, for example, or Captivate, for example. But I expect that to happen, and when that does, I think the interactive teaching and learning and assessment that goes on within an online tutorial or online learning package will become a lot more engaging for the students and the teachers and the instructor designers that create them. One of the things that we also noticed in the early days was that we wanted governance of the actual chatbots that we were all creating. So if there were dozens of teachers around the college creating chatbots to support the Moodle courses, it had to be centralized. So we had proper governance of all the chatbots, and we had proper audits. And so if a member of staff left and another person joined the team, they could be handed the actual chatbot to carry on with the work. So we felt that having a central chatbot creation platform was necessary in order to provide a proper governance and management control of the chatbot environment, even though it was outside Moodle. And we felt that is still necessary today, I think, because at the moment you otherwise end up with a rather disparate chatbot platform, and chatbots being created everywhere on Moodle and what have you, and there's no centralized governance or management of all those platforms. So if you're fond of centralized learning management systems like Moodle, and you don't particularly like devolve things because it means potential anarchy when members of staff leave or what have you, then I would suggest having a centralized model that allows you to disperse and embed chatbots into Moodle. And I think that's the way to go. But I think platform providers like Microsoft, Google, or OpenAI will, through their education platforms, will do that anyway. You'll be able to create the chatbots on those third-party platforms, and then embed them into whatever platform you want to do. And one of them will obviously be Moodle. But like I said before, I think one of the main gaps is still seeing the output from the chatbot as being part of the actual learning exercise, and it's not completely led and controlled by a probabilistic model like a large language model and a chatbot that's in front of it. Right now on Moodle, we've got the advent of Gen AI, and it's still very much in its infancy. So chatbots can be created in situ within Moodle, and text and image generation tool sets are available within Moodle activities. So all that's very welcome, but we're still in very early days yet. Expect generative AI and chatbots to be everywhere within a learning management system. And certainly Moodle is a few months or years behind platforms like Blackboard or Canvas, where Gen AI and chatbot integration is more pronounced. So because of the open source nature of Moodle, it lags behind half a year or more behind some of the proprietary platforms like Canvas or Blackboard, but it'll eventually get there. But right now, it's still very much in its early days. What's happening is that it's still playful on Moodle, but the use of proprietary platforms and API reduces the opportunity to experiment. API calls to large language models are cheap, but at scale they cost a lot to the college or to the university. So if you've got chatbots in every single course, and you're paying to make API calls to the chatbot provider, then the issue is that it becomes costly if more and more students by the hundreds or the thousands or the tens of thousands start to engage with your chatbots on Moodle and even on the learning objects themselves. And the thing's more pronounced when teachers start to create images, generate text as part of the Moodle courses, Moodle pages. So if everyone's using Gen AI and chatbot interfaces all the time and constantly as part of the teaching, learning, and assessment process, then you can imagine the costs start to go up and ramp up, and your finance teams will start to question where's this rising cost coming from. So that problem hasn't been addressed yet because the usage is still quite low. But when everyone starts using it, that'll be a question that needs to be addressed. How do we scale up the use of chatbots in Moodle, and to do so affordably and sustainably? My answer to that one would be we make use of open source local language models where you basically pay for 0 API calls, and every time, and you're not using any token charges, so it's completely free. I think that's the way it'll go in the future. Chatbots are probabilistic, not deterministic. So one answer for one student will be different from the answer from another student. And if you're using it to do assessment within a Moodle learning object, then even the response from the chatbot will vary from one student to another. It may be in line, but it won't behave like a teacher would do in terms of reviewing student answers and responses to questions. So you need to be aware of the probabilistic nature of responses on Moodle if the teacher's posing questions to the students as part of an assessment activity. And chatbot output is still dominated by text. And there's lots of gaps that remain around governance, to transparency and auditability. And for anyone who's under 18, these chatbots on Moodle don't comply with the safety standards that Education Scotland or the DFE in London suggest vendors and providers to support. So if someone says it triggers a safeguarding alert on, say, Moodle chatbot, no one will know about it. So you still got to be aware that these chatbots don't comply with the safety standards that needs to be there for anyone who's under the age of 18. But the DFE and Education Scotland hasn't mandated these rules to be in place. So that's why these platforms, these chatbot platforms within Moodle and the other LMSs are still there. I think they're giving time for these vendors to get their act together so that they can become compliant in the near future. And one of the things that I need to say as well is that students and teachers in a typical campus will start to engage with, are using numerous online services. This means that the end users will be presented with lots of multiple chatbots across all the different platforms. So you may have a chatbot on your intranet, you may have a chatbot on your website, and then you're giving another chatbot or Gen AI services on Moodle. So, but one of the things that you start to notice is that none of these chatbots or Gen AI services talk to each other. They're not sharing information with each other. And also the chatbot service that students get becomes rather fragmented. So if you're asking questions on Moodle through your chatbot interface, it won't connect with anything else. So for instance, if you wanted to inquire about booking out a library a book, or extending the loan period on a library book, you won't be able to necessarily do that within Moodle. So you may have to go to your main campus chatbot to do that there. In fact, your main campus chatbot may not have it. You have to go to the library vendors like Heritage and engage with the chatbot and Heritage to renew or extend the borrowing time for your books. So what happens for students is that, and for staff, is that every time they go to a different platform, and Moodle is one of them, they could get a rather fragmented service when they're engaging with chatbots. So colleges and universities need to get their head together and say, how on earth do we resolve this issue where the students on campus and away from campus are presented with a unified AI service that supports them throughout the studies, throughout the student life cycle. So at the moment, it will become fragmented. And when Moodle starts to embed chatbots more and more so, the fragmentation will become increasingly more pronounced. So those are the lessons that we've learned. I think chatbots on Moodle have still got some way to go. They're still in the infancy. And through meetings like Moodle Moot, that's the only way where individual teachers, instructor designers, and institutions will have a say in the development cycle for Gen AI on Moodle around the world. But we are still in its early days, and it's time to be experimental and practice some imagination, what have you. But just be aware of some of the downsides that we're currently facing with chatbots on Moodle right now. They're not quite there yet. And even some of the things that we did at Bolton 9 or 8 years ago, the chatbot still can't do those particular things that we deployed. So we're still in very early days yet. So I'm happy to take any questions from you if you wish.
What did you find? What was the reaction to having chatbots at Bolton? Because you were ahead of the game with Ada and other projects. And there has been a lot of anxiety. And recently, Chara had sent me an article about Google opening up Gemini within Classroom unexpectedly to schools, universities, and colleges in the States, and finding that their students could get help with their homework, which caused a bit of a shock to the system. How did that play out at Bolton at the time?
Well, when we rolled it out, we didn't have that problem because the only alternative was Google. And so that there were no other chatbots out there. So the only place to go for answers was Google for most of our students, or Wiki or what have you. And so students were still going out to other websites to gather information and drop it into the chatbot interface on the assessment interface on Moodle. But we discovered when we were doing experiments with the students inside classes while they're on Moodle, they didn't escape to other websites out there. So when they were engaged on an online learning platform and a learning object on the screen, the engagement levels were quite high, partly because it was new. They hadn't seen anything like this before, and it was still quite a novel thing to see on the screen. But in 2025, it's a very different picture, isn't it? And most students at home, amongst their friends, it's common practice and it's the norm now to use chatbots to find everything. Like the family and I went to North Wales over the summer, and we went to one of the castles there, and we saw everyone walking around in pirates' outfits, and we wondered what's going on. My inclination was to go to the web browser, do a Google search, but one of my oldest lads went to ChatGPT on his phone, and that's how we garnered the information. Both sets of information were on par with each other, but it's interesting how one of my sons went to a Gen AI chatbot first. So the world is changing how people are using these services.
Absolutely. Normalized. So, opening to the room, are there any questions that you have for Aftab? Literally, he has so much experience in this space and has been using the technology for so long at Bolton that I feel it's a kind of a glimpse into the future. So if you have a question, if you want to pop it into chat, or if you want to unmute and ask the question, please do. Yeah, Jamie.
So I think we've covered a bit of this, but how would you deal with AI chatbots being confidently wrong when it comes to assessment criteria?
Competently wrong, or
confidently wrong.
Confidently wrong. Yeah, that's where we said that we rolled out a two-way conversational interface on another platform that I developed called First Pass, and we also started to count responses on Moodle through a chatbot interface. Basically, we said, but it was very deterministic. Behind a probabilistic model, we had a deterministic model. So, so one of the things that we need to do is have human oversight when you're using a probabilistic language model. So the computer makes no judgment. The AI makes no judgment. The actual decision and the mark and the actual formal feedback is given by the teacher, not by the computer. On First Pass, when students were having dialogue with the computer while they're generating a draft, the students were told that it is a computer, you're having dialogue with a computer. The computer has no idea what heart and soul you're putting into your answer, and it doesn't really understand what you're saying. It may talk confidently, but it has no grasp or appreciation of everything that you're writing on the screen, unlike you or the teacher. So we said to the students and the teachers, the computer in that situation would never, ever, ever, or should never, ever be allowed to have a judgment on the student's work. It can give feedback, but the students and the teachers need to take it with a pinch of salt. And if a final mark or points need to be awarded for the student work, that could only be done by the teacher. So from get-go, we had to make a decision to do that. And I think the Assessment Association in the UK and other assessment associations around the world have that particular stance as well, where assessment decisions need to be made by a teacher and not by the computer. Of course, we've got multiple choice questions and stuff like that, but they're okay because they're deterministic, and we know what the right or wrong answers are. But when it comes to probabilistic outputs and replies from a chatbot, the teacher is the only one that can actually inform the final decision and pass a judgment on that work.
I think that's right, Aftab. That's confirmed by the JCQ guidance and SQA locally here in Scotland as well. The final say must lie with the teacher or the lecturer. Although AI, it is permitted for AI to provide feedback and also assist with that mark.
And the feedback is incredibly valuable. But the students need to realise, I think, through they need to develop a sense of criticality. They need to be able to reference other sources if they're querying the chatbot's output. And I think that's a good thing that the students are learning as part of their discovery process in using large language models.
Thanks for that insight. And I agree with you that that's a key aspect to how chatbots will operate within our educational institutions. And I think when we have more time, I'd love to invite you back to help us just see a glimpse of what that might actually look like in practice. And I know that's a conversation we'll be having later.